Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Kisesi, and I'm the founder of Kikazi. This is an online site that platforms African rural women's stories. I spent the largest part of my life in the village, and like many who would share in this experience, we know that they are different. These experiences are different from those in the city. I grew up surrounded by powerful women. And I always knew rural women like my mother and grandmother who had sustained our families through farming. However, moving to the city, like that man there, this came with a novel reality for me. The stories that I was exposed to and the framing around them sort of made these women look a bit less desirable. And these women were portrayed in this poor image. These stories were always very problem-centered. Whether it was an issue around gender-based violence, agriculture, climate change, and even food security. These stories, in most cases, depicted rural women as suffering or living in poor quality lives. These stories left me confused, and this was not the picture I remember growing up, at least not the whole picture. I grew up seeing women farming the land, harvesting millet, maize, beans, and keeping some seeds for reseeding. This ensured that we always had food growing every season. I saw women in my village gazetting places where they would dry their food to preserve it so that their families always had something to eat. And when the rain threatened their drying food, the first woman on the scene would make sure that all the other women's food was safe from this rain. Don't get me started about women washing out and disciplining each other's children. Talk about children taking a village to raise a child. But how many of these stories make it to the mainstream media? Whether it's women from Uganda or other African countries, rural women are never often given the chance to tell the whole story. So many of their stories are focused on problems. I believe that rural women, like I was once, like my mother is, deserve to be shown in fullness. Don't get me wrong. Rural Africa is not perfect. It has its share of problems. And these stories deserve to be told in the media. But what are these stories being covered? Why are they being covered? Who is telling these stories? And why are they telling these stories? When stories are told, they have an adverse effect on the identity, the language, and the perceptions of people they are about. And when they are told wrongly, or just a bit, they misrepresent the people they are about. Rural women play a very key role in supporting their households and communities in achieving food security and food nutrition. Women continue to provide the largest portion of agricultural labor across Africa, accounting for approximately 43% of agricultural labor force in developing countries. In Eastern and Southern African countries, women make up to 50% of the agricultural labor force. In Uganda, for example, an estimated 77% of females are engaged in agricultural work, compared to 67% of the men. Yet women's contribution is usually underestimated and underappreciated. Women make up more than 50% of Africa's population, and 80% of these reside in rural areas. And yet their stories seldom make it to the front pages or the headlines of major media houses in the country, unless, of course, it's associated with a big problem like landslides or hunger or HIV/AIDS. The absence of these stories in news coverage also restricts how important issues are discussed and solutions formulated. Furthermore, low literacy levels among girls and women also limit the access to information. According to a report by UNESCO, Uganda has an adult literacy rate of 76%. While the male literacy rate is at 82%, the females are at 70%. So why did we come up with Kikazi? Yes, those are the rates. Why did we come up with Kikazi? Kikazi is there to fill this space where mainstream media is not able to reach. Kikazi majorly focuses on stories by rural African women and also looks for ways to get rural women to access these stories. This is done by training these rural women in basic skills of news gathering and news reporting. These rural women are given editorial control over their content. To ensure that these women get access to their content, we are changing the format. We format our content to audio format, which is played on local radio stations. These stations we have made partnerships with, so they're able to play this content in audio format, considering that radio is the biggest mode of communication in Uganda and most parts of Africa. Kikazi is also run by African women. This is to ensure that women problems with women are prioritized. Access to information is vital in empowering people to claim their broader rights and entitlement. And for me, a platform that accurately mirrors our societies has content that is complete and delivers content that is complete and very diverse is very important to me. Rural African women's stories should be a reflection of their world, and these stories should be told as seen through their eyes. Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. My question has to do with the boy child. I'm kidding. I'm not going to be that. I will not be that guy today. But it's a lovely initiative. I think I like the idea that you're trying to get onto radio to reach these women. But you also mentioned literacy levels. So I'm curious about maybe translation. Is that in your pipeline? Considering English may not necessarily be the main language for most of these women. I don't know. Do you have plans around that?
Yes, we do. So what happens, like I said, we train rural African women to report on their stories. It's these women that we now call correspondents, who have that task of translating these stories, like to narrate, to translate into their local languages.